Hello out there. I'm wondering if I can get through today without my glasses on because you can see the light. Look. Woo. How you doing, everybody? Lovely to not see you, but lovely to at least see the numbers of you there. How's everybody doing today? Say hi, let me know you can hear me. I have my whole new setup here, so I'm much more confident than I ever used to be that you can hear me. But there is like a 23-second delay I'm aware of. So ping, 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 say hello. Just let me know you can hear me. Hello. Mohand, thank you for letting me know you can hear me. That's awesome. Okay, so let's give it a few minutes. Everybody's always a bit slow on a Monday. I have to say, the Wednesday crew, they're a lot sharper on their timings, but I think maybe that's because this is afternoon, although you're all over the world, right? So it's just after lunch for me, but I suspect it's all sorts of different times for you. So why don't you tell me where you're from? So Mahanand, tell me where you're from. Vamish, you let me know where you're from as well. Sylvia, hello, how you doing? Again, let me know where you're from. We'll just catch up briefly whilst we wait for the others to arrive. So I did this at this time of day because I wanted to make sure I had opportunity for people further kind of east, because obviously I'm in the West and a lot of Amazon interview coaches are in the West. So I was aiming for kind of the India, Pakistan market, but I actually don't get that many people from India, Pakistan type market. So I'm thinking about changing the timings of this because I don't get as many people as I think I could. But there we go. So tell me where you're from. Oh, DJ, that is the nicest thing for you to say. Thank you so much. Oh, it's very sweet. Okay. It's a holiday in the US. It's the holiday in the UK as well, but I always just run over bank holidays because I figure even though it's a bank holiday for me, there are plenty of people elsewhere in the world where it isn't a bank holiday. But that's good to know that it is in the US as well. I won't feel so distressed when my numbers are a bit lower than they usually are. Ciao, Sylvia's joined us from Italy. That's wonderful. DJ from Detroit. Oh, you're in Brussels. Ah, nice. I've never been to Brussels. I hear it's lovely. And Ashley Green, lovely. It's always good to see Ashley Green. It's always a good day when you get to have a kind of conversation with Ashley Green. Mahand, you're from in Egypt. Awesome. Oh, I'm glad. So you were also in the time zone that I was aiming for today. So I'm pleased you found me and that I've got the right time zone for you. So shall we get going? It might be a little bit quieter today than usual, but I commit to these things, so I do them. So let's get going. So my intro. I am Gigi and I am the Amazon interview whiz. Usually at this point I would point at my t-shirt, but my t-shirt, which is my branded one, is lost somewhere, I suspect in one of my children's wardrobes, cannot be found. So I am unbranded today, but I'm the Amazon interview whiz. Obviously, I think you guys probably know that and you found me from my YouTube channel. So I was a senior leader and interview bar raiser at Amazon for years, and I have hired hundreds of Amazonians. I, since leaving Amazon, started up my own Amazon interview preparation academy. Basically, I identified when I was bar raising and interviewing at Amazon that, well, people who get coaching do a lot better than those that don't. And then I discovered how expensive coaching was, which seemed to me to be grossly unfair and certainly contrary to all of the diversity and inclusion ambitions that we all have these days. So I created a digital version where you can get pretty much anything that an interview coach would tell you at something like 90% less of the cost. So trying to make it available to everybody. And if you hang on until the end, I will tell you about something awesome that I'm going to give you away free from my Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. But as part of my kind of mission to make Amazon interview expertise accessible to all, I obviously have my YouTube channel and I do these free sessions. So how we'll do the free sessions, a little bit of housekeeping. I won't answer specific technical questions. There are hundreds and hundreds of job families in Amazon and no one person can be a technical expert on all of those. My expertise as a bar raiser was in the leadership principles and interview strategy. So that's what we're going to focus this session on. Please don't say, I'm interviewing for a program manager role. Any tips? Yes, I have about 2.5 hours worth of tips and they're all on my YouTube channel. So if that's what you're looking for, please just head to the YouTube channel first. And what I'll do is I'll go through the questions like I always do, and I will pick out ones that I think are going to be most useful for everybody. So I apologize if I skip over your question. It's not that it's not a valid question, certainly for you, but it's just probably not one that I think everybody will get the most use of. Okay, so then the one new thing that we're going to be doing today that if you've been here before we haven't done is, I know I say these are free sessions, but I have created a new currency for these sessions. And if you want me to answer your question, you're going to have to give me a thumbs up. In fact, you're going to have to give me a minimum of 6 thumbs up before your question, and then I will answer your question. The reason being, the algorithm loves thumbs up and it thinks it's great content if everybody on there is pinging away thumbs up. So that's what I need you to do for me. Quid pro quo. I give you free coaching advice. You give me thumbs up. Seems like a fair exchange. Okay, so I think we're ready to get going. Our audience is pretty solid now. It hasn't moved up and down for the past few seconds. So few minutes. So let me start having a look at what we've got. We're probably going to run for about half an hour today, I think, by the looks of things, but let's see how we go. I also have my cup of tea with me. I'm a little bit parched, so apologies. I might swig on that every once in a while. So let me go through. As people appear, I might say hello and welcome people. So just try and make it a relatively relaxed process. Right, let's go through here. DJ, thank you again. That's very, very kind of you. Okay, let's keep going. Ah, Anish, okay. Oh, you're in London. You've got a loop on Friday. Surprise, surprise, a loop on Friday. Everybody's loop seems to be on Fridays. I don't know why. Okay, DJ, good set of thumbs up there. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you qualify, DJ. Let's go. All right, tell me about a time when you failed at work or tried to refine a process and failed. Senior manager told me no happy ending, no story. Don't understand, that wasn't the question. No happy ending, no story. DJ, that's a little bit obtuse, but I think I know what you're saying here. This is actually, I'm going to make a new video actually on how to deal with the failure question. So I think this is broadly the space that you're talking about. So what Amazon are looking for when they're asking you about the failure question is to understand how you deal with times when you mess up. Because the truth is, everybody messes up at one point or another. So they're asking you that question to, number one, find out how did you get yourself into that situation in the first place? Was it a bad decision on your part, or was it a series of events that perhaps you didn't have sight of or didn't have control over that then had unintended consequences on you? So it's an I'll write a lot associated behavioural question. So they're trying to understand about the decisions that you make. So they want to know, what decisions did you make that took you up to the point of failure? Then what I want to know is, how did you deal with the failure subsequently? Were you a really good owner? Did you just take charge? Did you fess up? They want to know, can you make good decisions? Once you know something's gone wrong, are you able to make good decisions in terms of your ability to recover? Now, reading between the lines, yes, exactly, DJ. I was just about to get to that. So actually, I'm just going to close that and pin that one up. There we go. Do you have to subsequently fix the failure as part of the story? Yes, that's exactly where I was going with this, DJ. You must only use a failure story if you recovered from it. Because what Amazon wants to know is, can you recover from failure? If you can't recover from failure, DJ, then you are not someone they want to employ, because the chances are you will fail, but they'll need you to recover from it. So my strategy with the tell me about a failure story is go big or go home. As a bar raiser and as a hiring manager, I'm okay if people make mistakes that are quite large mistakes. Sometimes the teeniest of mistakes can result in massive issues. So as an example, someone who worked for me a number of years ago made a teeny tiny mistake and forgot to tick a little checkbox on a system. And that teeny tiny mistake resulted in the loss of €4.5 million off the German P&L in a matter of hours. Massive failure. Teeny mistake, massive failure. Now, she did the most amazing job to recover from that. It was unbelievable the skills that this person pulled out to sort out the problem, resolve it, and then most importantly, make sure she never made that mistake again, and belts and braced the process to make sure that nobody else after her would ever make the mistake again. And as an interviewer, that's what you're looking for, someone who can make material mistakes but deliver really impressive recoveries. But certainly never go into a failure question without explaining how you recovered from it, because the most important part of that particular behavioral question is the bit where you tell your interviewer how impressive your recovery was. Okay, so I am going to make a video on that one shortly. That's on the list for, I think, a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, DJ, for the question, and it's an excellent question. Okay, what else do we have here? I'm going to have to put my glasses on, guys. I'm really sorry. I'm getting old and my eyesight is just getting worse and worse. It's terrible. Sunny Aurora. That's fabulous. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What do we have here? So, Jassia L. Oh, and you put your thumbs up at the end. Well done. Well done. Okay. Good question. Okay. You are absolutely welcome for the content. Is it appropriate to have my interview notes in bullet points in front of me to refer back to? Yes, I am a big fan of that strategy, and I definitely have a video about it on my YouTube channel. So the most important thing in this context is to remember that the Amazon interview process is not a memory test. It's not there to make sure that you can remember every single version of, 20 to 30 different examples that you've come up with for your interview. It's there to gather evidence. So if you need a few notes to help prompt your memory in terms of what evidence you want to share with the interviewer, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Your interviewer would far prefer that you had some short bullet point notes that will keep you 100% on point, crisp and concise than if you were sat here with no aids whatsoever, roaming around in your memory, umming and ahhing, getting confused, going off track, coming back. So absolutely, yes, I completely advocate for people to have a brief set of notes in front of them. You made the point about bullet points. Absolutely, that is the right strategy. You have to avoid writing yourself long paragraphs, because what you definitely don't want to do is be reading effectively a script off this piece of paper, because number one, it will be very unnatural for your interviewer and yourself to try and interview when someone's just basically doing a monologue. And the second thing is, the high risk is that your interviewer might ask you a question that actually your monologue isn't built to cope with, and you're off script and you're completely flustered, and that script has become a crutch for you. So just say you've totally got the right strategy, just a few bullet points, situation, task, action, result, just to keep you on track, and that will be absolutely fine. Thank you for the question. I'm also going to briefly clean my glasses because I actually can't even see the screen, they're so filthy. I'm horribly badly prepared today, I do apologise. Right, back in the game, much better. Okay, let's move on then. Ashley, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, definitely made the right count there, Ashley, well done. So let me just read this quickly. Is there a subtle way to know the interview is going well? I'd say not really, Ashley. Different interviewers have different styles. I know I'm pretty good at radiating a very positive atmosphere in my interviews, even when they're not going well. I do also know that there are other interviewers who seem to exude an atmosphere of stern negativity, even though the interview is going well. So my suggestion is, and I know this is hard because it's a very human behavior, but my suggestion is you just try not to worry about it and you focus all your mental faculties on remembering the information that you want to share, speaking clearly, speaking concisely, listening to the question that you're being asked, listening to the follow-up questions and taking a cue from the follow-up questions as to whether you are or are not giving the interviewer what they're looking for. But you'll boggle your mind, Ashley, if you're trying to read people's body language, people's facial expressions. It's a very human thing to do. We all do it in any conversation. You're trying to read whether you're boring someone or not, or at least I do. Usually yes is the answer, but I wouldn't worry about it, Ashley. There's nothing you can do about it other than just try and give the best answer you can possibly give. Okay, I hope that was helpful in some way, Ashley. Okay, DJ. Good, more thumbs up. Very good count of thumbs up there, DJ. Tell me about it last time you had to apologize to someone. Is that ownership? No, that's more of an earned trust question, DJ. That's about building bridges. Yeah, so in my masterclasses, which I will give you a free one of later on, I talk about the different facets of the individual leadership principles. I go through all 14 of them, and Earns Trust has a few, and the one that you're particularly talking to is building bridges, where somehow a relationship has either started off in a sour place or something has happened between you and an individual and the relationship has become damaged in some way and you need to build bridges in terms of being able to get that relationship back on track. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there might not be an element of ownership in your specific example. I can make up a scenario in my head where the situation might be that somebody made a mistake in your organization and you took ownership of that mistake. Maybe it wasn't your mistake, it was somebody else's. Somebody made a mistake in your organization. You took ownership of that mistake. You reached out to the customer, the internal customer, your manager, whoever it might be, and had to apologize for that mistake. And then you have to earn their trust back. So it is possible that ownership is part of that. But if, for example, the mistake was entirely yours and yours alone, then ownership doesn't necessarily play into that, because ownership is really about taking on things that are well beyond your own scope. If you messed up, then I would entirely expect you to be the owner of that, and therefore, baseline, that's the situation, and it becomes much more about earns trust. So primarily, that one's going to be an earns trust question. There may be situations in your particular example where maybe ownership bleeds into it, but that's not its primary function as a behavioral question. That one is aligned to earns trust. Okay, and actually it's earn trust. That's a horrible mistake that I and everybody else makes. It's not earns trust, it's earn trust. I make that mistake all the time. Drives me crazy in retrospect. Okay, moving on then. Sunny, let me have a look at this question. You are more than welcome, as always. How much time does HR take after giving a confirmation call for selection after the loop till realising the offer letter? Oh, right. Yeah, that's a little bit of a how long's a piece of string question, Sunny. Sometimes if your recruiter is not busy and hasn't got a lot on, it can happen within a day or two. Sometimes when they're absolutely drowning in candidates and recs, then it can take longer than that. So I get asked this question quite a lot. How long does it take on average between point A and point B? And I'm sorry to say there is not an average that I can share with you. So just hang in there. I would say give it 3 or 4 days. And if you don't hear back, ping your recruiter an email just to say, hi, I'm still here. How's it going? Do you need anything from me to help move things forward? Obviously they don't, but that's just a polite way of poking them to move forward. But I would suggest that's the way you go about it, rather than I can't promise you that there's any specific time frame that you should be expecting this to happen in. Thank you for that, Sunny. Moving on then. Music Machine, hi, this is Sam. Hello, Sam. Thank you for joining. Okay. Lorene Brown. Now, Lorene, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but I require some thumbs up as payment for your question. So I'm going to answer your question for you, but give me some thumbs up at the bottom, please. It's all for the algorithm. Okay. And I hope I pronounced that right. Lorene, I've gone for. Okay, so your interview is from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Does it really run that long? Are there breaks in between interviews? Yes, there are definitely breaks in between interviews, and it doesn't run for the full 5 hours, at least not with one individual. So actually you've got 6 hours, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So chances are there's 1 hour in there for lunch for you. And then you'll be meeting 5 different Amazonians in the course of that time. And each of your interviews are probably going to be an hour long. So I'd suspect you'll have 3 in a row, then lunch, then 2, sometimes depending on, or you're starting at 11. So yeah, I think that's probably right. You'll either have 3 in a row and then 2, or 2 in a row and then 3, given you're starting around 11 o'clock. So I would say to you, definitely use that break that you have. It's really, really important. The Amazon kind of interview marathon is exhausting. I still feel exhausted from mine, and that was 6 years ago now. So take your break, make sure you have some food, make sure you have some water with you. I would also say if you are feeling a bit fatigued and you just kind of need a couple of seconds just to have a sip of water, don't be embarrassed to say to your interviewer that you need that. If you need to pop to the bathroom as well, I've had candidates ask if they can just step away for a couple of seconds to go to the washroom. That's fine as well. We're all human. You've got to make sure that you are in tip-top condition to make it through those interviews and give it the best that you can. So that's, Lorene, I think, how it's going to play out for you. Okay, thank you for that question. Still waiting for my thumbs up though. Okay, hey Sam. Okay. Right, Sam, interesting question. You want to know how the 60 minutes be utilized by the interviewer. Is there a breakdown? Broadly speaking, there is. So usually you would expect maybe 5 minutes at the beginning, maybe a little bit less for intros. You say hi, they say a hi, you have some niceties about how it's going, time of day. They give you a bit of a rundown on how you can expect them to manage their interview. Different interviewers play it ever so slightly differently. So usually people will just warn you how they like to do things. Then they will also be saving 5 minutes at the end of the interview for you to have an opportunity to ask them any questions that you have. So that then leaves you 50 minutes in the middle of those two things for your actual interview. Now, that's literally going to be them asking you questions to fill up those 50 minutes. I'm usually targeting about 3 questions if I am interviewing someone who's kind of L6 or above. More questions probably if they're an L5 or below. Broadly speaking, like 4 or 5 for an L5, L4, maybe a bit more for an L4, 3-ish for a 6 or a 7 or an 8. That said, there are plenty of interviewers that don't adhere to those type of structures, which are kind of the norm, who might just end up asking one question. I've heard this a few times recently, candidates only getting one question, but having tons and tons and tons and tons of follow-ups. But those 50 minutes are effectively broken down into however many questions your interviewer is aiming to ask you. Some interviewers, like me, will actually interrupt in the nicest possible way, by the way, guys, I don't do it rudely. But as you say things through the course of giving you examples, I would be stopping you and saying, that's interesting, you've caught my attention with that one, can you tell me a little bit more about, etc., etc. Other interviews might let you do your narrative, your situation, task, action, result, and then wait until the end to ask you any follow-up questions. Now, I don't do that because I lose my train of thought and I'll forget. So that's why I don't do that. But other people obviously have better memories than me, and they stack up their questions until the end. So those are two different types of methodologies I think you can expect when you're going through those 50 minutes chumped up into the individual questions. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question for you, Sam. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Anish, let me just put this up. Anish, I'm lacking thumbs up here. Come on, more thumbs up. Let's have a look. You're nervous about your loop on Friday. Another loop on Friday. Well, you're in good company because it looks like there's plenty of people having loops on Fridays, and everybody gets nervous. I have never ever met a single person that wasn't nervous before a loop, or any interview, quite frankly. For a senior program manager role, okay. They've now streamlined to a generic tech and analytic profile. If I pass the loop, the offer be for the best fit or another mini loop. So if it's a pooling rec, which it sounds like what you've got here, where they're just basically looking for program managers, and they're then going to try and find a whole bunch of bar raising program managers and then assign them to a particular role. Generally, you wouldn't expect a mini loop to follow off the process of a pooling rec, because that's a bit unreasonable to expect a candidate to go through an entire interview process and then go through a mini loop. Now, a mini loop, to be very specific, is when you go through the panel process but with a smaller group. The panel process is usually a minimum of 5 people. A mini loop will go smaller and usually be about 3 people, and probably, at least in this case, not include a bar raiser. But what I would suspect would happen after a pooling rec is that you might find yourself meeting the hiring manager for the role that they have matched you to. That's not a mini loop, that's a one-on-one interview with a hiring manager. Based on what you've told me here, that's what I suspect would be the process that you're most likely to go through. So if you're in a pooling rec, you're one of, let's say, 8 senior program managers who have been identified as bar raising. They'll then try and match you up to a role, and you'll probably meet the hiring manager for the role that they have decided is probably the best match for you. That hiring manager can ultimately decline to take you should they feel so inclined. But then you're still a bar raiser and there's still all of these other roles available. That, I suspect, is the process that you're going to go through, Anish. Okay, thumbs up came afterwards. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Lorene, thank you for my thumbs up. I appreciate it. Okay. Oh, there you go. I preempted your question, Anish. Yes, you will meet a hiring manager. I think it's almost unheard of for anybody to join a team having never met the hiring manager. Very rare. Okay. I'll just answer this question briefly. So my masterclasses, do you get lifetime access once enrolled in the masterclasses as you would in Udemy? Yes, absolutely, unequivocally. I'm proud I got that word in here. I loathe the organizations that charge you for a product and say you can only have it for 6 months. just can't understand that practice. Obviously, that comes from my Amazonian customer obsession. You buy it, it's yours. You have lifetime access to it. So many people have to go through the interview process on multiple occasions. So I absolutely make my course available to you for life. So if you go through the process across a span of years, hopefully my business is still going. I will have a solution if it's not. Don't worry, no one's ever going to not get the product that they've paid for. But yes, absolutely. And there is actually, there's a section on the sales page that talks about that. It's under refunds and something or other. So I do state it there specifically. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's yours. You buy it, it's yours forever. Okay, I hope you buy it, by the way. Thank you very much for your interest. I worked very hard. 700 hours it took me to create those masterclasses, and lots of tears. Lots and lots of tears. Okay, what else have we got? I can see the thumbs up are disappearing, so, get it together, guys. Okay, let me read this one. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading this one split across a couple of parts. Oh, and on and on. Okay, I'm still reading this one. Okay. This is brilliant. This is spread across like 6 different sections. I've had to jump, and the thumbs up at the end. All right, I've just posted the final one, and I will praise back to you the question from this candidate. So, Anurang went for an interview in a team. He didn't get the role, but he heard back from the recruiter that they wanted to offer him an opportunity to interview for another role that is at a lower level, and it's in a different location with a different hiring manager, and the phone screen is tomorrow. Yeah. Will you have to go through the whole process again? And if not, do they consider input from previous interviews? So it's actually really quite variable between teams, Anurang, as to whether they'll want you to go through the whole process again or not. Now, sometimes when the second role that you're interviewing for is quite closely related to the first role, like maybe they're really adjacent teams and they work very closely together and both of the teams know each other really, really well, then sometimes you don't go through the whole process again because they feel very confident the data that's been gathered is highly relevant by people who really, really understand the role. If, however, you're going for a role that's really quite fundamentally different in terms of a different team and a group of people who have perhaps never met each other and never heard of each other in their entire existence before, then sometimes you are required to go through the entire process again. So there's no one rule. The best person to ask this of is actually the recruiter. I always say to everybody, you should just never be embarrassed to ask your recruiter any of these questions. Of course, I will help wherever I possibly can, but because there's so much variability between teams and business units, I'm going to end up telling you it could be this, it could be that, whereas your recruiter, they know. And it's absolutely your entitlement to ask these questions. You are the customer in this case. You are going through the process. There's nothing that your recruiter will ever hold against you when it comes to trying to get transparency and clarity about the experience you're headed into. So, Anurang, I would suggest just drop your recruiter a line and just say, just so that I know, just so I've got my head in the right place. Can I expect to go through the end-to-end process again, or will there be some kind of reduced process because I've already been through one set of interviews? And see what they say. Okay, thank you for that. I'm now going to find my way back up the page. Right, Asal. Okay. Asal, you're lacking thumbs up. So if you haven't done them, oh, there they are. More than compensated for. Thank you very much. Okay. If during a loop I don't have an answer to a question And if I say, can you ask me something else as I've not faced it? If the same question is asked again in the other round, what should be the response? You should say the same thing because you've already said it that you don't have a response. If you then go on and answer the question again or answer the question in a subsequent round, then they're going to wonder why you didn't answer it in the first round. So just say, I don't have actually, well, I would say, funnily enough, I was actually asked that very specific question in a previous round, and unfortunately I had to tell them there that I don't have a good example for that question, and I'm afraid that's equally true now. I don't have a good example for that question, and rather than waste your time and waste my opportunity with trying to shoehorn something in, can I please just have another question? Consistency. It's all about consistency. That's one of my top tips as well in terms of the whole interview process is make your story consistent, keep it straight. Say the same thing when you're on the same subject time after time after time, because when you are interviewing across so many different people, inconsistencies in stories become very, very clear because your interviewers compare notes. Oh, he told me there that he got an uplift of 62%. Oh, well, he told me here it was only 23. I wonder why the difference. And that starts to create questions around earned trust. It sends up kind of flags. So just be consistent, Asal. If you said it the first time, say it again the second time. Now, if they've done their jobs properly, they should have already read your notes from a previous round. Now, obviously this is not in the context of panel because no one sees what anybody else has done until the very, very final stages. But certainly if it's kind of between round 2 and round 1 or between panel and round 2 and round 1, your interviewers should have read each other's notes and therefore should know what questions have been asked of you and should not ask you the same question. Doesn't always happen, but I would hope the scenario that you describe here, Asal, is very, very, very rare. Okay, thank you for that question. I'm just going to have a sip of my tea. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm sure you guys didn't join this to watch some English women drink tea, but nonetheless. Okay. DJ, are you just going to spend this whole time asking me which leadership principle each question is coming from? Okay, I'll do one more for you, DJ, one more. Only because you gave me the thumbs up so consistently. Describe a challenging problem or situation in which the usual approach was not going to work. Why were you unable to take the usual approach? This is an invent and simplify question. Why were you do you know what? Now I'm embarrassed because now I'm going to have to check with myself that I've actually got that right. I'm going to come back to this one. Wouldn't it be awful if I got it wrong? How embarrassing would that be? And now I've lost my screen. I'm going to come back to this one, DJ. All right. Okay. Oh, and it's changed background colours as well. That's all gone horribly wrong for me. There we go. Right. Boom, boom, boom. John Doe's on and is keeping himself anonymous. That's no problem, John Doe. If you want to be anonymous, that's absolutely your right. Welcome anyway. Everyone's welcome, anonymous or otherwise. Okay. Hola, Miguel from España. You are welcome. So you have a final round this Wednesday. Oh, it's a Wednesday person, not a Friday person. You're in the minority, Miguel. Every interviewer will ask about different LPs, yes, or can repeat asking about the same LP. Right. No, every interviewer should be asking you a question on a unique leadership principle. So at the beginning of the panel interview, each interviewer will be assigned a leadership principle. Generally, it's a bit done at random. Sometimes a particular leadership principle is assigned to a particular interviewer because the hiring manager knows they're particularly good at it. I always used to get Dive Deep as an example, but generally they're randomly assigned and everybody gets a different leadership principle. But there are times when the questions in the leadership principle are, they sound similar. So are right a lot and bias for action. Sometimes those questions sound quite similar. Bias for action is about weighing up the kind of the risks of something. So generally the questions there tell me about a time where you didn't have enough data to make a clear decision about which way to progress. How did you decide? Now that's bias for action because it's saying you've got some data but not quite enough. Whereas an I'll write a lot version of that question might be, tell me about a time where you didn't have data in order to make a decision. How did you go about making the judgment and deciding what to do? Now, in that case, that's about having no information whatsoever and just going on your not gut feel, but your educated decision based on your experience in the past. So quite often those questions tend to sound really similar and candidates get a little bit confused as to which one it is that they're answering, but they will definitely come from different leadership principles. Everyone will be assigned a unique leadership principle. Okay, moving on then. Sanjeev, does an essay interview L6 loop include a presentation? I don't know what an essay is, so I'm afraid you're going to need to be a bit more specific than that. So if you want to ask the question again a little bit lower down, I will try and answer it. Well, actually, do you know what? Don't bother, because it will depend. Different teams, it doesn't really matter what an essay is in truth, because different teams do things differently, even in terms of the same team. I've recruited for marketers for many, many years. Sometimes I'll have marketers do a test for me if I'm particularly looking to hire someone with strong creative skills. I'll make them do some kind of creative case study, etc. Other times I'm hiring a marketing person who's going to be running my storefront and doing merchandising, and it's got nothing to do with creativity. It's much more about processes and technical, so I don't do that with them either. So can't really answer it. It depends entirely on the team and the specifics of that particular role that you're going for. But if you want to know the answer, are you going to have to do a presentation? Ask your recruiter. As I said, it's your process, so you should not be embarrassed to ask your recruiter if you have a particular question you'd like answered. Okay, moving on. Brian, good question, Brian. Good question. Is it correct to say that the phone screens will focus more on the bigger leadership principles like customer obsession, ownership, and earns trust? No, it is not correct to say that. And I wouldn't say that those are the bigger leadership principles. Dive deep is a huge leadership principle, as an example. Deliver results is a huge leadership principle, as an example. Most of them are as big as each other. It just is specific to roles as to which one is more important than another. In one role, it might be more critical that you have strong earned trust, not earns, boom, boom, ownership, and deliver results. In another role, it might be hire and develop the best, learn and be curious, dive deep. Your first phone screens will be focused on the most important leadership principles for that role. And that's because if you can't nail it on the most important leadership principles for that role, there really is not much of a point of taking you all the way through the process and burning more and more business hours on you if actually you're never going to raise the bar on the key leadership principle for that role. So my big tip for people is to obviously go through your job description and try and work out what the key leadership principles are from the job description. I do always tell people to ask your recruiter. It's about 50-50. Some recruiters will tell you and some recruiters won't, but you may as well ask. No one's going to hold it against you. And then once you've done your preparation, listen really hard on your first interview, because that will be where they will be asking you, probably not all of them, but definitely some of the key leadership principles for the role. So if you are asked about customer obsession and ownership and earn trust in your first round, chances are you'll be asked those questions again in the final round, because they're key leadership principles and they're probably the ones that you are going to want to smash out of the park if you want to be considered bar raising and to have strength in the areas that they need you to for that particular role. Thank you for the question, Brian. Let me read this, Sal. Your phone interview round had the hiring manager, and the same round has been conducted in your loop interview as well. Will the same questions be asked during phone and loop interview from the hiring manager? No, your hiring manager should ask different questions. There's very, very little point in anybody ever asking you the same question twice, because all you're going to do is give them the same answer twice. So if you give them the same answer twice, what's the point? They've got the information the first time. That's a complete waste of time. So you should expect your hiring manager to ask you something completely different. What Amazon is trying to do is get the broadest set of data available from you to make a decision as to whether you're bar raising, which is why everyone's assigned a different leadership principle so they can get as broad a feel of all of the different leadership principles as possible, which is why when your hiring manager interviews you the first time, they should ask you different questions the next time, because then again, they get a much broader set of information from you. Because that's what it's all about, trying to find out whether you consistently, repeatedly, over the course of your career, have been able to deliver high-performing outputs. So no, you should never expect anybody to ask you the same questions repeatedly. That would be a waste of your time, and that would be a waste of their time. And what I do tell people is, if by some chance you are asked exactly the same question, which does happen because, as I said earlier, sometimes interviewers do not do their due diligence and they do not check what questions you've been asked in previous rounds. If you are asked the same question, you should say to your interviewer, just to let you know, I actually was asked that exact question by Billy, it's always Billy, in my stories anyway, at point X. Would you like me to give you the same answer that I gave him? And then it's up to your interviewer to either say to you, oh, actually, no, I'll give you another question, or to say, yeah, I'd actually quite like you to answer that question. Then it's on them if you end up repeating the same information multiple times, because in an ideal world, Amazon would like fresh information. They don't want repeats. But if your interviewer has driven you down that pathway, you want to make sure that they know it's on them that you ended up repeating a story. Okay, thanks, Asal. I hope that was helpful. Oh, we've got quite a lot of questions in 10 minutes, so I'm going to see if I can find somebody who I have not answered a question for. Have I got that right? I hope I've got that right. So thank you for my thumbs up. Appreciate it. How do you know which LP is being tested with each question? You got to know the LP. That's the only way to be able to know, is to be so familiar with the leadership principles that you can dissect, whatever the right word is, from the question that you're being asked, what leadership principle they're after. So if someone says to you, tell me about a time where you were able to deliver above and beyond expectations, you know that that's all about deliver results, because deliver results is about performance and delivering and over-delivering. Or if someone says to you, tell me about a time that there was a problem in a project, how did you identify it and how did you solve it? Well, then you know it's about dive deep, because you're looking to identify something, source information, solve problems. But you have to really, really, really understand the leadership principles. You have to have understood them well enough to the point where you've been able to identify their different facets, come up with examples for each of those facets. So when you come into your interview and the questions are asked of you, the questions always correlate with the different facets of the leadership principles. You will have an example ready to go. But it's all about study, I'm afraid. There's no guesswork, there's no luck. It's all about study, 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 and understand the leadership principles inside and out. And then as soon as someone starts to ask you a question, you'll know what they're talking about. Okay. Hope that was helpful. Okay, just checking. What do we got? Okay, just gonna go back up here to Mohammed. Mohammed, let me just pin you. Lacking thumbs up, but you've given me a smiley-ish, so I'll let you away with it this time. Okay, you're welcome. You had your loop on the 19th. Okay, it was quite a few days ago now, and you still don't have any feedback. 3 tech interviews since February and a loop of 7. That's a big loop. Okay. So if you had a loop of 7 people, that's going to be really tough for the RC recruitment coordinator to organize the debrief for. Getting all of those people in the same place at the same time to actually show up and not somebody end up sick or someone have a meeting shoved in their diary that gets in the way is really hard. I've done loads of 7 loop interviews and I cannot tell you how. I don't think I ever had a single one where the debrief wasn't shifted. So that could be a reason why you haven't heard back yet, because just getting those people in the same place at the same time is going to be a complete nightmare, and I do not envy that RC in any way. But that doesn't mean to say that you do not deserve to have your answer by now. So I would say to you, reach out to your recruiter, very politely say, you're still here, you're still waiting, you're super keen on the role. Can they let you know when you might expect to hear an answer? They will, I promise you, your RC will be doing their very best to get you that debrief done. But with that many people on the loop, it is no mean feat. So just don't be embarrassed to ping them and ask them how they're getting on. Okay. Let's have a look. What else have we got? There we go. Yeah, so there we go. So just kind of picking this up here in response to my point earlier. Absolutely, there are some interviewers who will tell you it's absolutely fine to repeat the story. If it's the same question, it's on them. So here's case in point here that what I said to you earlier is correct. Thank you, Chetan. Okay, what else have we got? Let me just have a quick scroll. Okay, yes, okay. Yeah, Lorene, so I'm going to pin this. It's kind of in the middle of your questions, but hopefully everyone will get the gist of it. So you mentioned that in your phone interview, it was mostly behavioral based questions. And then you were asking me whether you think you'll get questions which are more ADA, which is your area of expertise specific. And then particularly you said, perhaps I'll try to incorporate examples that demonstrate your skills. So my advice to candidates is, wherever possible in your examples, if you're going for a particular skills area, try and make your examples relate to both that skills area and also the scope and complexity of the role that you are interviewing for. Now, that's not always possible. Sometimes people are doing skills jumps where they're applying for roles that are transferable skills, but they haven't ever done that exact role before. So sometimes that's not possible. But where it is possible and where you do have particular experience in that particular skills area, I would absolutely encourage you to try and train your examples around that skills area. Now, some teams will ask you specific technical questions. I would expect those things to happen in the early rounds, because what's the point in taking someone through to a loop if you haven't validated that they actually have the technical capabilities to do the role? So I would definitely expect any technical questions that they were going to ask to have been asked in early rounds. That doesn't mean to say that you won't get technical questions in the panel round. You may still get more technical questions there. But if you haven't had them by now, I'm not sure they'll appear. That said, I would definitely do what you're thinking about doing, which is aligning the specific technical skills with the examples that you use. Then win-win. If nobody asks you any technical questions, you've already provided them with the evidence that you do actually have the technical skills to do the job. Okay, thank you for that one. So I'm conscious we've got 4 minutes left. So let's see if we can find somebody, somebody new. Okay, yeah, Gizmo. Hello, Gizmo. Thank you for joining. Thank you for my thumbs up. Can you use the same example you used in the writing sample during the loop interviews? Yes, you absolutely can. And you can repeat examples, guys. I do often say, in fact, I always say, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Right? If you can avoid a pothole in the road, avoid a pothole in the road. If you can't avoid it, you can go through it. It's not going to be the end of the world. If you're going to repeat an example, my strong advice is that you reframe it so that it's focused on a different leadership principle to the one that you used it for in the before. In most cases, most good examples will have different facets of different leadership principles in them. And as you tell the story, you can lean really, really heavily into one and away from the other. And then when you retell it, you can lean really, really heavily into the other one and lean away from the first one. I do actually have a particular demonstration of how you can do that in my interview preparation masterclass. But it's all about how you spin the narrative. Now, you're in even a more win situation when it comes to the writing sample and repeating between writing sample and interview, because the purpose of the writing sample is primarily to test your ability to write. It's not usually used in evidence in terms of the leadership principles. It is if it's a particularly good example, but broadly speaking, the primary purpose of your writing example is to see, can you string a sentence together? Can you write something clearly, concisely, coherently, crisply? Can you build a story? Can you tell a narrative? Can you take them through to a conclusion? Because in Amazon, there is no decision that is made in Amazon that isn't made off the back of someone writing a document. So if you're entering into Amazon, they want to know, do you have at least the basic skills of being able to write a document? So I would say you're absolutely fine to repeat the example between your interview and your written one. If you can repeat it on another leadership principle rather than the exact same leadership principle that you wrote it on in the writing sample, that's even better. But generally speaking, that's a fine thing to do. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure I get to tell you all about the amazing freebie that I'm giving you. So let's see if I can get one more in. Okay, Sylvia, this will do. We'll do a quick one here. Okay, so sounds like you said I've never had a co-ord call, so I think you mean a coordination call, so you've not spoken to a recruiter or an RC. So you went straight through to loop, now you're on to panel, no one's asked you about notice or actual salary, how do you take care of this? Right, so Sylvia, for me this is a classic case of taking ownership of the situation. I really strongly encourage candidates to not find themselves all the way at the end of the interview process with an offer having never discussed compensation with anybody. So Sylvia, I would ping the email, whoever's coordinating with you, someone is sending you emails with your dates and your times. HR, that's recruitment. Recruitment is the people that get involved in Amazon, not HR. It's a common misconception. But whoever is sending you those emails, send them a message back and say you would like to have a discussion about compensation before you go too far down the process. It would be a great shame to make it all the way through the process only to discover that Amazon couldn't offer you the type of compensation that you're looking for. So could you please have that conversation ASAP? Take ownership of the situation is my strongest advice in that case, Sylvia. Good luck. Okay, guys, we are at time. So I did say there's something awesome that I have for you. So here's my lovely frame. Here's the Amazon Interview Whizz Academy.com URL. I am offering every single one of you my Customer Obsession Leadership Principle Masterclass completely free, no strings attached. I will not chase you for marketing, I promise you. I'm offering it to you because obviously I want you to know how amazing my content is, and hope that if you enjoy that, you will enjoy the rest of my content and purchase yourself some other content. But customer obsession is the most critical leadership principle in the whole of Amazon. You guys know that. It's the customer obsessed organization on the planet. So if you're going to nail anything, you've got to nail that one. So take the customer obsession masterclass as a gift. It's free. I will not chase you up. And I wish you the very, very best. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for some really awesome questions. I love meeting you all. Oh, Sylvia's already bought 4 of them. Thank you, Sylvia. Appreciate that. It's my end of month as well. This is the last day of my month. So I've got my fingers crossed for where I'll get to this month. So it's been going for 3 months so far. I've had some amazing results. I'm hearing every week of people getting roles, which is just so super exciting for me, because this is what it was all about, making expertise available to everybody. These people are spending $35, $225 instead of like $2,500 with other coaches, which makes me feel good. So please take it. Please enjoy it. I'm here on Wednesday. I'm back again on Monday. You know, you can always comment if you have questions on my YouTube channel. I usually get back within 24, 48 hours off YouTube. So until then, if you've got interviews this week, good luck. I have my fingers crossed for you. Please stay safe. The world is still somewhat insane out there, and I will see you all soon. Be safe. Bye-bye.